like that same kind of like outrageous mustache, but it's a pet.
I'm Austin.
And I'm Cloud.
This is We Watch We.
This is We Watch Movies, and I guess it's been a while since you've heard that piece of music there, because we don't do the like thing before the actual thing very much anymore. Mostly we've just been going right into movies, and so you'll hear another thing that you don't hear very often later. But apparently there are things to talk about besides the movie that we're going to do. And the movie we're going to do is going to be like an old TV pilot that didn't get made and got turned into a movie. Like an old version of Parallels, if you remember that we did probably like 100 episodes or something now. But before we get to that, I don't know what before we get to that, because I have not been informed. So before we get to that, what?
All right, so we've been gone for a little bit.
Yeah, we have. I was sick for a while.
And some not kosher family things happened to me.
Yeah, and you were out of town for a while.
So yeah, and we're trying to get our stuff back together, and hopefully one of the next shows that we will be doing soon will be Knives Out. Spoiler alert, because we both wanted to watch it, so there's a pretty high chance. Are we gonna try to do Midway? Or are we just going to wait for it to come out or something?
I guess we'll probably wait for it to come out at this point. Maybe we'll wait until like next year for the anniversary or something. It's not like a major anniversary like the big special episode was, but
yeah.
we might as well wait at this point.
I went and saw Midway because Yeah,
you saw it and I was going to see it, and then you were like, I've got to go out of town, and so then I didn't see it. So
yeah.
It's like, it's going to be too many days. We'll see what happens when you get back.
Well, I was almost thinking about having to see it again if you were wanting to do it.
Well, you probably had, because it's been like 2 weeks now.
Yeah. But I have caught back up on Rick and Morty. Yeah, I know it's not a movie, but I really like that TV show.
Reluctantly let Kenny talk about South Park from time to time.
So I've really enjoyed it.
What do you mean by caught up? You mean caught up to like? Well, there's a season on right now, right?
Well, like, let me finish. Originally, back in August, like the third or fourth week, I watched seasons 1, 2, and 3.
Mm-hmm.
But then, of course, season 4 wasn't going to be out for another little while, and so as like the season 4 aired, like the first episode, I started going back and I was rewatching season 3, and then I decided, you know what, screw it, I got time, I'll go ahead and do 1 and 2, and then I caught up on season 4, except for the newest episode that just aired by the time that you're listening to this. And so I'll probably hold off until like this episode and the next episode airs, so I can watch like back to back, because I really do enjoy it. But I've also watched The Mandalorian. A guy I know, I guess the best way to put it is there's a guy I know who got free Disney Plus with like a Verizon thing, and he's like, bro, you got to watch Mandalorian, it's really good. And I didn't really care about it because, whatever. And
see, okay, so I'm gonna let you finish.
Yeah, all right, Kanye, you're gonna let me finish.
I know, but I'm a little upset now because there's been this whole like, you're not gonna do the Star Wars movies with us when they come out, and now you're going off and watching a Star Wars television show that I'm not even watching yet. So
well, okay, so here's the deal. I didn't care about the Star Wars stuff at all. Like, I was done with it once Disney bought it. I don't like what's become of it. Blah blah blah. You can say I'm a whiner. I don't care. But all of the other people I know who do not like any of this new Star Wars business said they loved The Mandalorian. Like, they were like, oh my God, like this does not feel like it's made by Disney. Like, all of these other movies and all of this other garbage, like, it doesn't even exist.
Despite
The Mandalorian is where it's
on
at.
Disney Plus.
It's like The Mandalorian is where it's at. And I'm like, all right, so you dislike it more than I dislike it, and you're telling me I have to watch Mandalorian. And like this was before the Baby Yoda stuff. All right? Like there wasn't a single Baby Yoda meme because this was just episode 1. And so episode 2 aired, and I'm just kind of cruising, and then like the dude's like, hey, you want to come over and watch it? And I'm like, yeah, but I ain't got the time right now. And he's like, well, that's all right. See, the episode 3 is going to be airing pretty soon, and then, you know, you can come over Friday, and then we can just watch all 3 because you haven't seen it. And I'm like, hey, that sounds good. And so the Friday hits, and I head off that day.
Mm-hmm. And
so, you know, I sit down and I start watching it. And episode 1, I'm like, hey, okay, yeah, this is pretty good. You know, it's. I guess you would say it is kind of cut straight to the point. Like, here's this Mandalorian. Here's kind of the thing that's how this is supposed to go. And then here's a job that you're supposed to do. And then Baby Yoda stuff, like right there at the end, like because there's not enough footage to actually make the meme up. And then episode 2 hits, and then okay, this is the scenes that they use for the meme, and there's this, and there's this, and there's this robot that does all this weird spinny shit that's trying to self-destruct. Hilarious. That is just suicide joke after suicide joke, and it's well done. It's not like some kind of tactless, you know. It was creative. It was creative for a droid to make a suicide joke. Thank you. And then we get episode 3, and I'm just like, this is the way. This is the way. And I'm like, all right, I like Mandalorian. I'm pleased with it. And if they could have made this quality, because it really does feel like how episodes 4, 5, and 6 were, where there was a lot of practical effects.
Uh-huh.
And so,
I mean, so does Force Awakens, but I still don't like it.
Well, see, here's the thing: I
dislike it for the story.
There's like a quality difference between, you can tell just how old 4, 5, and 6 are compared to everything else that was made, regardless of the age or the techniques used. Like there's just that kind of.
Well, it's hard to even tell anymore.
Well,
nobody can even see it's hard to even see the old ones.
Yeah, that's true. But if you've only seen all of the re-edits and redone, you're not going to understand.
You've seen like a mess, so you don't even know what's going on. You're seeing,
and I'm
like,
sorry for that.
Like bad CG from 1996, and also like old stuff from the 70s, and it's just a mess.
But I would say that when I watch like episode 4 feels like everybody is covered in real dirt and hates it.
Well,
because they were.
Because the shooting in Tunisia, it was terrible, and everybody almost died of not malaria. You don't get. I can't even remember what it was. It was bad. It was a bad time in Tunisia.
And
time.
That is what episode 1 of Mandalorian felt like. It really did feel like, here's this dude in this big armor suit, and he is just not having anything going on right now because the actor himself is literally got sand in his crotch plate. Like, that's what it felt like watching it. And I'm like, all right, nothing was overblown. There wasn't. I know that Star Wars does have a lot of crazy, colorful characters in it, but there is none of that in this. At least yet. And then whenever we do get introduced to some characters that you would say, hey, well, that's a colorful character, it's not used to distract. It's more used to illustrate the differences between how these characters handle these situations that they're put in, which does help push this plot along. And so I am looking forward to more episodes. But I just thought I'd share that because, you know, it's been a while and we have watched things. And since I know I'm not going to give like a full breakdown of everything, I just thought I'd kind of share, if you have a way to watch Mandalorian without shelling dollars to Disney, because I already have issues with them.
Well, I think what a lot of people are doing is what people do commonly. Is just like
pirating.
Well, pirating, but also just like waiting until the season is over and then subscribing and watching it all at one time.
Yeah, that's smart. 30-day free trial. Especially with all of the Marvel shows that are supposed to be starting. Like Winter Soldier and Falcon, and then there's supposed to be Scarlet Witch and Vision. Like, they're supposed to have like all those like combo characters, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just like, hey, just wait for it to finish and then just binge watch all of it. Because you know you're going to do it anyways. You know you're going to binge watch the entire season. Do not lie to me. Do not lie to yourself. Just do it.
I haven't watched anything really important, I don't guess. I guess I've watched some things, but not anything that's really that's like current or worth talking about.
And now, our feature presentation.
This week's movie is Incident on a Dark Street. Incident on a Dark Street is a 1973 legal drama TV movie film adapted from an unsold pilot. Directed by Buzz Kulick, apparently. Starring James Olsen, David Canary, Robert Pine, Richard S. Castellanello, and William Shatner. How about a plot synopsis?
You could literally take 2 or 3 episodes of original Law and Order, and then that's what this is.
But not as good.
But nowhere near as good. Not to say it's bad, but essentially they tried covering 4 stories, like I think it's like 4 stories at once. You have like
it's basically just 2. It's it's the like water department corruption. It's their like mini Chinatown thing, and the guy that with the like whatever drugs in the phone booth.
Well, you have like the because that's the kid in with the drugs, and then you have the water department, but then you also have like the murder, and then which involves like the one guy, and then you have like the internal business corruption. Like they're all kind of connected in a way, except for the kid with the drugs. But like each one is like their own little mini thing that could have had its own resolution, except for like half of it had to deal with a suicide, a bomb, and then the ending credits being someone walking to the courthouse.
Yeah, because it's still like, even though it's adapted into a movie, it's still, you can tell that it was meant to be. And I mean, it aired on TV. It aired as a TV movie on NBC in 73, in January of 73, as one of their Saturday night at the movies things. But it was produced for Fox as the pilot for a show that was going to be called The Prosecutors. And they didn't buy it, and so then it was just kind of sitting there, and then somehow NBC ended up with it and aired it as a TV movie. But like it has like the on-screen credits at the beginning where it says the title, and then it's like starring and then guest starring, and like people don't guest star in movies.
No,
like because you only have, it's just like there's people who are stars, and then there's the other people. But you don't call them guest stars in a movie. But so it's like they didn't even adapt the credits necessarily. But this is, there are a lot of these things, and a lot of them never saw the light of day, and sometimes they got passed around on old VHS tapes or something, and there are people that have collections of those, and some of them got made as released as TV movies, or sometimes aired just in pilot form, just like they were like, here's time we have to fill on the network, and here's some episodes of shows that are never going to have more than one episode, and they would just put them on, and not in a like, Cartoon Network used to do this thing where they would sort of try the pilots of various shows. They would do it in the summer, and then like depending on what people seem to think of them, that would kind of determine the ones that actually got sent to series. And that didn't really happen that much back then. It was kind of like they would, the network executives would see it and they would decide. And then even if, like, because, you spent whatever amount of money on making this pilot, if you could put it on TV and at least put a few commercials in it and make a little bit of the money back, even if not what you paid for it, that's still better than it just going on the shelf forever and no one ever sees it and you never do anything but just have spent money on it.
Making no money from it.
Making no money. All you did was just lose money. You spent money and then it was for nothing because no one ever saw it. You never put any commercials in it.
Better to have a minor loss than a complete loss.
Yeah. And so it was a fairly common practice for them to either turn into TV movies or just get aired in the summer or the winter off season or something. You know, in more recent time, we would have things, but you don't really have them as much anymore because this kind of thing just sort of becomes a Netflix show or an Amazon Prime show or something. They don't really happen the same way, but you used to have these things called event series, which has kind of been like taken and adapted into meaning like this thing that's really important that's only on for a short time, but it's part of something larger, so it's not a mini series technically. You know, season whatever it is, 11 or 12 of the X-Files, the one that was on a couple of years ago, like that was an event series, even though it's just kind of like an extra season of a thing that already existed. But you would have these filler seasons of things where it would be, 10 episodes or something when there was nothing else to put on. There was a show called The Evidence that was on I think, CBS during some weird period where something else was canceled and they put it on for a little while and it only had that partial season and then it never came back, which is kind of a shame in that particular case because I liked it, even though it was a weird premise for a show. But you could have these things, and it still happens now. We as I said in the earlier part of the show, we did a thing called Parallels, which was a movie version which did appear on Netflix. I don't think it ever broadcast anywhere. That was just adapting the pilot of a show that never became a show, which actually is becoming a show now, even though I don't think with the same people or being made by the same people, but with sort of the same premise. Like Parallels is going to continue, although I think it has a different name now also, but like it's from the same project. So like back then when we reviewed it, it was like, oh, this thing is dead.
It should
like,
stay
it didn't
dead.
get made, but like it is getting made. Like they're making it. It's getting made again. So like it died and then and now it's coming back.
Listen, this is not the type of necromancy we want. All right.
But like this never came back, which there is, if you've ever seen Network, there's this bit in like the early middle. It's not the middle. It's in like the like end of the first act or so. And there's like this it's after the first Howard Beale thing happens. And then they're sitting in the office and she's listening. Faye Dunaway's character is listening to these like pitches of shows from the like scripts that have been sent in, and they're all this like young upstart law students and like a crotchety old lawyer like and it's just like these kinds of things, and it's like there were tons of these things, and so it's not a surprise really that this one in particular, even though like it's not like the worst thing ever, it's just like it's a fine legal drama, I guess, but there were tons of these in the 70s, especially because we had sort of moved on from the police show that we had in the late 60s.
All right, we've caught him. Now we got to prosecute.
Yeah, we had the it took a while until Dick Wolf came along and said, what if we have the police and the lawyers and it's the same show, and then we get Law and Order. But we had lots of cop shows in the 60s. The prominent, sort of like surviving into the modern time as Ideas ones like Dragnet and Adam 12, but you had lots of other ones. And then there are cop shows, detective shows in the 70s, but they're usually less traditional cops. They're sort of like, not quite like anti-hero cops, but like just cops and like private detectives that used to be cops. Or you have, Mannix and Rockford Files and those kinds of things. And then eventually you'll get to the 80s, and then we'll get back to cops. You'll have Chips and things, which actually one of the main characters in this, the actor is also one of the main characters in Chips, 10 years later. But
because of that, it kind of got me thinking, what was the year period that A-Team was in?
Well, A-Team is in the 80s.
Okay, see, I wasn't quite sure if it was in the 70s or the 80s, But one of the things that kind of got me thinking about it
And they're not the cops at all.
Yeah, they're not the cops at all.
Or private detectives. They're just some guys that used to be in the army or something, and they run around helping people.
We'll see
if you can find them.
Yeah, if you can find them, they'll find you. But like that was one of those things that kind of got me is like there's a lot of cop movies and cop shows. And then you might have had like some, legal movies, but you definitely had the legal shows. And you didn't have anything like A-Team. And the reason I bring this up is because earlier, if you listen to the whole thing instead of skipping ahead, I was talking about watching Rick and Morty. And there's there's like 2 episodes that deal with like interdimensional and parallel universe television. And there's a show that they watch or show us clips from. It's called Ball Fondlers. And it is essentially a different dimensions version of the A-Team. And it looks hilarious. And I was kind of hoping that Cartoon Network and Warner and all that would do like a Ball Fondlers movie. Just like they did the Aqua Teen Hunger Force movie.
Well, but that was actually a show, though.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a joke in a show. I mean, what you're really talking about...
It's a show inside of a show that I want an actual movie of.
Well, what you're really talking about is Machete. Like, that's what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Like, Machete was a joke in Grindhouse, and then, like, it becomes its own thing, and they make 2 of them. So...
And it's like I was just kind of thinking about that. It's like, you know what? Like Chips can be funny. I didn't think it was. I'm just saying.
Well, I mean,
you have A-Team and like the A-Team movie. I know people hated that movie, but I thought it was
the movie tried to be funny. But the thing is that the show doesn't think that it's funny.
No,
it just looks goofy now because it's like dudes in shorts on motorcycles. But it's like it's a serious cop show, and they're kind of like they goofball off each other a little bit just because it's 80s TV. But it wasn't like. Wasn't it? I mean, it's the Chips movie, which I haven't seen, but because why? But I mean, maybe like if we keep going through these like 70s and 80s TV shows adapted into movies, like we have been, mostly because Kenny's been picking things.
We will not watch Chips until we do at least 21 and 22 Jump Street. Well, we won't do Chips until we do those 2, because those 2 movies were way better than Chips ever was. Or could be.
Baywatch has Baywatch doesn't act like it's a goofball show. It's just easy to make fun of because there's lots of running in slow motion and David Hasselhoff looking pretty and like there's goofy things about it, but it's not like let's make big broad humor and that's always what happens. When it seems like when they make these movie adaptions of old TV shows, except where you notice that there are rare cases where they made something good and maybe made more than one of them, things like Charlie's Angels.
Yeah.
Where like Charlie's Angels like took it seriously and Mission Impossible took it seriously. And now we've got, 6 of those? 5 of those?
Well, on the Charlie's Angels bit, because I know that we've done reviews for the Mission Impossible, so like
only like a couple of them because we're supposed to be doing this like reverse order thing, and we haven't really.
Like we screwed that up. It doesn't matter. We're doing them, but like we haven't done the Charlie's Angels, and I haven't seen the new one. I didn't even know the new one had already came out and left theaters.
It kind of came and went.
Yeah, like I was actually waiting for it because I wanted to see it. It's just when I saw the trailers for it, there wasn't a date associated with those trailers. So I was waiting for it, and then, like, by the time I noticed it had passed me by, kind of like Death Wish. Like, I wanted to go see Death Wish, and by the time it had...
it came and went really fast, too.
Like, it was out, it was, like, on DVD, and I'm like, wait a minute, I thought this was supposed to be out in theaters. Like, that was, like, last month.
The theater that I worked at didn't even get it.
Yeah, so I'm just like, all right.
They didn't even put it out everywhere, so it was... kind
of sad.
Okay, so I just looked it up, and apparently you can still see Charlie's Angels in the theater if you want.
Oh, that's good.
There's still shows. So.
Well, and the reason I say this is because one of the actresses had made this comment. I think it was one of the actresses. It was someone involved with the making of the movie.
Someone familiar with the matter.
Yeah, and so like that's as accurate as I can get. Made a comment that men don't want to watch movies where women are empowered and do actiony things, and I'm like, that's not true. That's not true because I
watch movies that are bad.
Yeah, I loved the other 2 Charlie's Angels movies. I loved them. I'm not saying they were the greatest thing ever, but I loved those movies. Kill Bill, woman killing people, tons of action. She could do it. I approve.
I don't know if that counts, though, because that's like people are going to watch whatever Tarantino makes.
Yeah, that's kind of true. Unless you don't know who Tarantino is, and then we have a slight issue. But I want to see this because I want to know how it compares for like my feelings for the other ones, so I can have a more direct statement between, okay, well, this is a remake of a TV show, so how did yours compare to the things that was before it?
Mm-hmm.
At least A-Team, like, I think the A-Team movie was, like, it was its own thing, but there was, like, wasn't there an actual A-Team's movie that was based off of the TV show that had all the same actors in it?
There might have been something back then.
I could have swore there was, or at least some kind of special episode that was a little bit longer than normal. I don't know.
It happened a lot with things back then. Like you had reunion movies. And,
yeah.
You know, Brady Bunch goes to meet the Beverly Hillbillies or whatever.
I remember that.
I don't know. Was that a thing that happened?
I remember something like that,
basically made that up, but I don't. It's something like that might have happened. They might as well. They're both in California.
Well, it's like I think there was 2 Brady Bunch movies.
There were,
and then there was
the
like
original
a
cast, and
slew
then there was
of,
like a reunion thing like
Beverly
several years after that. There was other Beverly Hillbillies.
And I'm like, I could have swore there was like some kind of crossover, like not an actual movie that they were both in, as much as it was just a movie where one shows up in the other one. It's like, hey, it's a connected universe or some shit.
They were on TV about the same time, I feel like.
Yeah.
Seems like there's more of the A-Team than there was. It was only on for 5 seasons. But I guess it's just, this 98, they didn't even make 100 episodes. There are 98 episodes of the A-Team. And it's such a part, it's just one of the, it's like MacGyver, where like the A-Team is like an idea more than it's this, you know, people know the A-Team as a concept probably more than they know the actual show now. Maybe they know that Mr. T was in it, but like they probably don't really know, you know, maybe the plan comes together, but they probably don't know anything else really. They had a van.
And they weren't pedophiles.
There's only 98 episodes. It was a cool van, though. It wasn't just the windowless. And I think it does have a window, doesn't it? I mean,
I think so.
Isn't there like a window? Well, no, I think I'm picturing something else because I was thinking it has that like weird round van window at the back, but I don't think it does. Can we just take like a minute here and just listen to the A-Team theme? It's like I'm just really thinking about it now.
In 1972, a crack commando unit was sent to prison by a military court for a crime they didn't commit. These men promptly escaped from a maximum security
How great
stockade
is
to the
this
Los
voice,
Angeles
too?
Underground. Today, still wanted by the government, they survive as soldiers of fortune. If you have
That
a
means
problem,
mercenaries.
if no one else can help, and if you can find them, maybe you can hire the A-Team.
I just like the fact they're crack soldiers.
Crack!
You got any of them rocks? I pity you, fool. This is where they show all their faces and have the name underneath them, and I just see Hannibal, and it's like Hannibal and face, and I'm just like, wait a minute.
He's got the cigar. He's holding like a dummy. See, that's one of my favorite things. You can't see it. If you don't know the sound, you don't know what just happened. Also, like, you know, we have this big orchestral thing that you think of, and then suddenly it's like heavy guitar happening. Like, we go all kinds of places in this theme.
We go to all kinds of places in this show.
Lots of gunfire, and then we go back.
Like, it had a budget. I tell you what.
I feel like it probably didn't.
No, it probably did not.
It probably did. Nothing had a budget.
They had $30, and you know what? They were really good at handling money.
Also, this is a minute and 37 seconds, this theme.
Jesus.
Like, just think about that. I mean, some of it is the, like, we have to explain to you what this show is about, because maybe this is the first time you've ever happened to tune in on this, because we don't have VCRs really yet. But there's, which is, you know, every now and then you still have on, like, certain kinds of show concepts. Like, that's why the leverage speech is so important, to have it exist as an entity in the first episode, so that then we could reuse it in the opening titles later, so that if this is the first episode of Leverage you've ever watched, you understand where you are.
Let's steal a review show.
And so, like, you have to have you used to have this, like, we don't know. Have you ever seen the A-Team before? Maybe not. We have to tell you what's going on. These guys are cracked. And they maybe you can find them, and you're just gonna, you know, like every episode is somebody's first episode, and we're gonna let you know. But like I stopped there, and like now we're talking about the A-Team instead of this thing. But like
it's better than the show, the movie we watched.
Well, I mean, because the A-Team is great. Of course, the A-Team is great, and it's allowed to be. You know, despite all of the gunfire that you hear, they never kill anybody.
Nope.
And so like,
I mean, death might have been implied in some scenes, but no one was actually killed on screen, like, ever. Same thing with MacGyver. Like, no one ever died.
No. Well, and you know, MacGyver has this whole thing
officially.
This whole thing where like he doesn't like guns, and like there's you know, one of my like most significant MacGyver memories, which I can't explain why it is, but I think it's because it illustrates such a key part of his character. Is that he gets amnesia in one episode, and I have no idea what episode it is or at what point in the series it is, but he gets amnesia and he doesn't remember that he's MacGyver. And then there's like this guy that like knows who he is, but he's like, I think he's like the bad guy of the episode, and he's up on, you know, he has the high ground, he's up on a staircase, just to bring it back to Star Wars. And
that only works for Obi-Wan.
Like MacGyver is like down at the bottom of the staircase, and he's holding a like an M9 pistol, and he, you know, he's kind of like pointing it at the guy, and the guy's like, you don't like guns, though. Like, he's trying to like talk him out of shooting him, even though he's the bad guy, but he's saying things that are true because MacGyver doesn't like, you know, like Elliot is kind of MacGyver.
Elliot doesn't like guns because it makes his job too easy.
Well. But like he Elliot is a character in Leverage, in case you're not following along closely enough.
I like Elliot,
but
he cooks.
He does. Killing people, cooking. Hold your knife the right way. Also, Mike Post, composer of the A-Team theme, also composer of the Law and Order theme. So everything's tying together here. Which actually you can kind of tell, like if you think about the like later Law and Order themes based on the original theme, like if you think of like the SVU theme or the Criminal Intent theme, where like it starts out with the regular Law and Order theme, and then suddenly like some guitar something is happening. Like it's kind of like the A-Team theme, like where it's orchestral and then suddenly it's guitar. So
every time I think of like SVU, I always think of like Ice-T making some comment about some crazy drugs the kids are doing that have like an outrageous name.
Yeah. At some point, like I know we don't do it. Either we're going to have to start a TV show, or we're going to have to change the name of the show, or we're just going to have to ignore the name of the show, or something, which we have already, because of course we did Fear Itself, which is a TV episode. We've done different things. This is a TV movie, not an actual, you know, not a theatrical movie. And so like, but like the crossover universe that's created by having character like Ice-T and Detective Munch from Homicide: Life on the Street, which by itself is a ridiculous, insane title for a television show, exist in SVU, and the other things that Munch has appeared in, makes this like giant television universe of things that like I feel like we have to address and talk about at some point, just because it's so significant and interesting.
Listen,
but none
Munch
of it's movie
is
based.
on Sesame Street, for Christ's sake.
I know.
Sesame Street exists in the Law and Order universe.
I don't even know where we are anymore. Oh yeah, MacGyver. And so he's like, he's holding the gun and he's holding it on him. And he's like, but you hate guns. Like it feels like uncomfortable in your hand. And he's like, his hands start to shake and he looks at the gun in his hand and he's not sure. I think he's actually holding it in his left hand. And maybe MacGyver is left-handed, and maybe, I'm not sure if it's been established earlier than that or not, but there's just this like moment where he's like, and I think he doesn't shoot him. I think he does put the gun down, and then I don't remember what happens after that, because just like the you don't like guns is such a solidified thing in that moment that like that's the thing that I remember, and I don't remember the rest of the episode.
American intensifies.
Yeah.
Guns are my religion.
But the the A-Team was created by Stephen J. Cannell, who knew how to create a television series apparently better than E. Jack Newman, who created The Prosecutors, which became Incident on a Dark Street. which was not incident life on the street, or life on a dark street, or homicide on a dark street. So it's none of.
Well, obviously the incident wasn't good enough.
He wasn't. What exactly is the incident on a dark street? Is that the phone booth thing? Because nothing really happens on it. Like all the corruption stuff doesn't really happen on a dark street. We don't see the gangster brother get killed on a dark street. Maybe he did, but we never meet him at all. We hear about him and he's talked about on the telephone, but we never see it. We never even see a picture of him. We never get an autopsy. We don't get any of the content of him actually, and we don't see him get murdered on a dark. Nobody gets murdered on a dark street.
No.
The gangster brother gets murdered in broad daylight from a bomb in the Los Angeles River. Like nobody dies on a dark street. And the guy on drugs phone booth thing is like secondary.
Yeah. And no one even dies in that. It's just picking up a package.
Yeah. I mean, and he's not going to like die. He's not going to be like capital punishmented for a bag of what? I can't even remember what kind of drugs it was. I don't remember what they
heroin.
said. Yeah, probably heroin.
Because
we know that it wasn't marijuana.
No.
Because he would not prosecute a marijuana, like a small-time marijuana case, as we get as part of his character introduction, which there are all these things that are like, we're introducing these characters because we're going to get to know them better later. And we get the big speech from the head assistant U.S. attorney of the Los Angeles field office. And there's so much here that feels so much like a television show.
All right. Well, I am kind of glad that we did get that speech, even though it was...
Well, you hated the speech.
No. I know I hated the speech, but I'm still glad we got it because it kind of put like an illustration on what we're supposed to expect from these characters.
Yeah.
Now, the whole thing where it's just like, I don't want no weed prosecution cases. And it's like, okay, if he didn't say that he doesn't want to be wasting his time on some small, like some kid trying to buy some weed, I can understand that kind of thing. But, whenever you got somebody who's like driving an 18-wheeler and half of that load is nothing but like bricks and bricks and bricks.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I mean, that's what he says.
It's like
not in the speech, but like after the speech.
Yeah, it's like there's going to be a point where it's just like, yeah, even though it's weed and it is illegal at this time and all this other kind of business, it's just like you don't really get a choice. Like
we're worried about like bricks of weed, trucks of weed.
Yeah, we're not worried about like the kid buying on the corner weed. We're talking about like
the feds the feds don't prosecute you for having like a tiny bag of weed that you're just gonna use yourself.
Yeah, that's gonna be like between the state and the county and all that kind of stuff. Like we didn't need it for the movie. Like they're feds, all right.
Yeah.
They're feds.
We don't need it for the movie,
stuff.
but we need it for the TV show because maybe we don't understand as an audience, especially at this time, what does the U.S. Attorney's Office do? Like, what are they? Because it is a different. It isn't Law and Order exactly because it's not local level. It's not. Yeah. District attorneys and assistant district attorneys. It's assistant U.S. attorneys, and like they take the oath of office and stuff.
Well, that was one of the things that kind of got me at the beginning of it was I didn't realize they were supposed to be feds.
Yeah.
Because the way they kind of introduced it, it's like it did feel like it's supposed to be like state level, and then it's just like
I think we saw the outside
like,
of the building and like it had the seal of the United States on it and stuff, but they didn't draw attention to.
Yeah,
who they
and it's
were
just like,
later.
oh no, they're feds, and then it's like all the like once you told me like no, it's feds, then it's like that's when all this stuff started falling together. But at the same time, like the speech about this kid buying or picking up a package and then like driving from a location and having to do all this kind of stuff, I'm just like,
yeah, and his is much more small time.
Yeah,
it seems like it. Even though it's not marijuana, it is a lot smaller a thing seemingly than the water department is corrupt.
Yeah,
and
like I understand like from like the show standpoint, this would be one of those like little minor stories that they use to kind of fill in for episode space and time. But for the movie, I almost feel like it was completely unnecessary. Like it didn't add anything, not even character wise, because since that character was only attached to that story, then it's just
Yeah,
like,
he
what's the
doesn't
point in
cross
seeing
over.
him?
Everything else crosses around, but
Yeah.
like he doesn't cross around.
Like, we got to deal with Vinny, and we got to deal with Frank, and we got to deal with Giovanni, and then we have like the prosecutor on that, and then we have like the big boss who's like over that, who Frank doesn't like because he keeps giving him these crossed eyes.
Yeah.
And it's just like, like, this is the interesting stuff. Like Frank dies in an explosion because someone watched him go get those papers. And I don't know why you didn't take the papers with him. Like, what? I know for us, we had to see where he's going to check the papers that his brother left, because his brother takes, record of everything. But why? Why?
So I suppose we should also say, I have no idea if this is even possible to get hold of, because it doesn't even have, like, it's black in the Wikipedia article. It doesn't have a link. It doesn't have its own page. But in 1977... E. Jack Newman, who created this show that didn't turn out to be, he also created the show Police Story, which is a fairly well thought of show, although it hasn't survived into the common time as much as some other things did. He in 1977 wrote a made-for-TV movie, which maybe was supposed to be another pilot. I don't know, because there's no information about it. But it was called Law and Order, although with the word "and," not an ampersand. And so that
ampersand
might be might be interesting. Whoa, Black Betty, ampersand. So we have to talk about the mustaches in this movie, because there are two of them. One of them is on William Shatner and kept you from knowing that it was William Shatner for like 30 minutes into the film.
Okay, so like that was the thing, is like seeing and he literally has a mustache on him. Like he could have.
No, he's not like concealed behind a mustache. Like he's not wearing a mustache-shaped hat or something as a disguise. Like he has a sizable 70s stash.
Yeah, and so whenever I first there was a character that he was around, and at first I thought that was supposed to be William Shatner, and I'm like, wait, like, is this supposed to be him? Like, why does it kind of sounds like him, but it doesn't look like him?
See, I don't know how you can tell. It seems super obvious to me, because I hadn't seen this before either. But it was just like, he's doing looks, he's doing takes to camera, he's acting like not in William Shatner is a terrible actor, but like he has like Shatner-y things about it. Like, this is not that far. This is 2 years from the end of Star Trek, so 3 years from the end of Star. And he's doing very Star Trek-y kind of. He still feels like the same actor.
Well, no. See, what I'm saying is this is before William Shatner is even on screen.
Oh, so you knew he was in it, and you thought, is that him?
Yeah, like,
okay.
I was like, because you see him there in the credits, or the opening credits, and then like I see this character who has like a similar frame to him, and he didn't have any facial hair, and I was thinking, wait a minute, is that supposed to be him? Like, that doesn't look anything like him. But when he talked, he did have kind of like not his speech patterns, but more like his like vocal range. And so I was like, wait a minute, is that supposed to be him? Like, that can't be him. No. And then, of course, like a little bit later, like there he is, and he's got that mustache, and I'm like, that's Shatner. What? Like, I felt dumb, but at the same time, there's Shatner. Look at that mustache. Jesus Christ.
Well, that was one of the things that like I like previewed you on this as being, when I suggested it was like, I have this thing. It's this old TV pilot that didn't sell, that was made into a movie. There's like lawyers and William Shatner with a 70s mustache. So there's like, those are the two things that I told you were happening in this thing, which I hadn't seen, but I was just taking that from, pictures of it and stuff on the DVD case.
Actually, it'd be really funny is if somebody was like, you know what, we need to make like a satire parody movie of like all of these events that took place like in the 60s and 70s, like movie related wise, and kind of do them as a joke, but with the same actors today. And I want to see like William Shatner have like that same kind of like outrageous mustache, but it's a pet, like one of those like the fake dogs on like the wire leash that kind of just hovers around when you move it. Like it'd be that, but he'd treat it like it's a real animal.
Mm-hmm.
Just because that mustache is so bad.
So James Olsen is the boss, and David Canary is one of the prosecutors, and the other one is Robert Pine, who is Chris Pine's father.
All right.
So there's that as well, and he's the one that played one of the main characters on Chips, also Robert Pine. He also plays the chief of staff in Independence Day. So, and he's, in much other things besides, but that one kind of stands out. So this was criticized by people as being like really talky and slow.
Well, I mean, if a movie isn't talky, it better be like mega actiony.
But I don't have a problem with talky, especially when we're talking about, lawyers and, court cases and stuff.
Well, I mean,
kind
like,
of expect
like
people
how
to
else
talk
do you
a lot.
expect the plot to advance? If
I know,
no one's saying anything?
there's not like, and then every now and then there's 10 seconds of action. The bomb in the manhole blows up, or he gets attacked by the street sweeper, and things like that. Which that was a pretty intense scene. Like that worked really well. And he played the like, I'm getting killed right now and I'm having a hard time with that. Like he was really having a hard time being killed. Which that was the FBI. Like suddenly the FBI shows up and like they were like watching, I guess, and ready to like blast the guy. Although they took a fair amount of time to save him from the street sweeper.
Well, I'm actually kind of interested in that because, like, were they watching him or were they watching somebody else? Like, because we're talking about like a whole crew. Like, we're not just talking about like one or two people following this guy. Like, we're talking about like a full layout.
It seems like they couldn't have just been following the guy who was attacking him with the street sweeper, because he's probably not individually that important in the crime organization. But they had a tap on the phones, I guess. So maybe they like heard which guy was being sent out to kill him, and so they followed him.
Well, that was one of the things I was thinking about, is because like they did talk about getting wiretaps. And then the only phone call we really see is from Frank calling from the diner. And so either Frank goes to the diner a lot, because like this happens right after.
Uh-huh.
Like he goes to the diner, makes the threat, and then he's like almost immediately attacked.
He is, which seems really fast.
But the guy who put out the hit is also part of the thing that they were investigating to begin with, so he could have had his phone tapped.
Well, we see them with the tape recording, like Shatner calls the other guy from the water department and tells him that he's talked to the other mustache in the movie and that they're gonna like make that he seems interested in the deal. And we see them like we transition directly from him on the phone to the tape recording being recorded to them listening to the tape recording in the attorney's office the next morning. And so they do have taps on the phone, I guess. But everything does seem to move really fast during that part. Like he makes threats on the phone and then is attacked immediately.
Like it looks like he walks like 2 blocks and then he just gets like bum rushed
by a street sweeper.
Yeah.
Which he doesn't, like you made a comment at the beginning when the guy that gets the drugs out of the phone booth is running away, and like he runs to the side and jumps off a bridge and he doesn't get away, but he's at least trying. And when he's trying to escape from the street sweeper, he runs directly forward mostly.
Yeah.
And so
wait a minute.
Not as good
I don't think he was getting drugs from the phone booth at the beginning of the movie.
Isn't that what it's supposed to be? Isn't that the case?
No.
The other case?
No, that's Vinny. Vinny was calling Frank.
Oh.
That was him trying to tell his brother what was going on. The other dudes worked for Giovanni and they captured him and then they murdered him.
Okay. So we do see him.
Like that was Vinny trying to escape.
I didn't even realize that. And you let me earlier say that we never see him. So
well, no, because that's all that we see of him, because he doesn't pick anything up from it. He goes to the phone booth to make the call.
yeah,
And then he tells Frank, and that's why Frank shows up earlier, and he does that name drop, and of course the boss is there, and he starts getting all eyes on it. But then we don't see Vinny again until he's dead, and then the people see him on the beach, and I called that out.
yeah.
Like, oh yeah,
well,
they discover his
see,
body.
that's one of the presaging Law and Order things here, where just the people doing an ordinary activity discover the murder.
See, that
at the
would
beginning of
but see,
the
that's the
episode.
beginning of the episode.
Well, but this thing is an hour and a half long, or 96 minutes long. Over
Not
an
if it
hour and
was a
half long.
TV show.
And so if it was a TV show, that probably is, that's in a different place in the episode. And it's still it's the beginning of the second crime, because up till then we've only had the drugs in the phone booth. And so in order to get the B plot, which is really the A plot, because they're really doing this the water department is corrupt with the gangsters, Chinatown kind of thing. But all the companies are one company, which didn't seem like that hard to discover, because he does a little bit of digging and discovers that that's the case.
Well, the feds and the mayor find out almost immediately,
Yeah.
but then Shatner doesn't even realize it until the end.
Well, no, I think he knows, right? Doesn't he know?
No, because Giovanni's the boss.
Yeah, he's the other
He's the one that
mustache.
tells him, it's I'm the one who owns this, and you owe me money.
Well, no, that's the bank, though. That's the bank
Yeah.
with the loans. He knows he owns all the parts of the construction job, though.
Yeah, but he didn't know that he owned the bank thing.
Yeah.
That was kind of that twist ending, because there was the guy with no facial hair, and then there was the guy with facial hair, and the guy without the facial hair kills himself.
Yeah.
And that's what leads Shatner to getting arrested-ish, almost immediately afterwards when they find the body.
Mm-hmm.
Now, speaking of that, I would have just shot Giovanni in the head. I am right here. Here's this guy who is I can do this, because he's already willing to kill himself, because that's what he does.
Mm-hmm.
He's being put in this situation where there's 3 options, and pretty much all of them lead to lifetime imprisonment or death.
Yeah.
And if I'm going down, I'm taking somebody with me. It's the 70s. Pull out your 38 special. You just cap him in the head right there, point blank. Well, if it's got to be done, it's got to be done.
Yeah. Well, and this is 73, so this is 2 years after Dirty Harry, so we're already into the people get killed in the 70s as a regular thing, and this is what film and television is. So, yeah, that could have happened.
And that was kind of the thing I was thinking about. It's just Giovanni's obviously well known. He's a big crime boss. He's got all these plans in the work, which that gets him the money without having to do any of the legwork himself. Why doesn't he do it himself? Because he's got the money to pay other people to do it. Now here you have this guy who owes money, or has none, however you want to put it. And if you can't pay someone to do the legwork, you just do it yourself. And he was in a situation where at least the person who was threatening him could be removed. And then, you just evac out of there, because, I'm sure everybody else is probably going to, come after you, because, you just killed Giovanni.
Yeah.
But just to kind of end that part of the story that way, it left a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, I guess so.
Let's see, the FBI show up. We already did that, and it does feel like a TV show. That was already said.
Yeah, it does feel like a TV
all right,
show.
so I kind of want to cover the young person, because he's not a kid. He's 27. The young person who was picking up drugs.
Uh-huh.
We get a scene where his wife comes in by herself to talk to the prosecutor. And at first, I thought it was going to be one of them kind of I'm going to offer up my lady bits, please don't do this to my husband kind of thing. But we don't get that. And we also have the secretary, or whatever position she has, actually sitting in the same room by the door.
Yeah.
And then the wife just goes, "I'm dying."
Yeah.
She's like, "I'm dying." And it's just
It's a
like
li-
hands him the paper. It's like, here's
It's a
like
little, which we don't get to see, but like it is a little bit of like a soap opera kind of thing. Like suddenly the wife of the suspect is dying of cancer or something. We don't know what. But it does come like, because you said, what did she say? Because it was kind of hard to hear. And
I'm dying. I
it's
have this medical note from my
okay.
doctor saying I'm dying.
I only have a few months, which I don't know what that means.
because
she
I'm
says.
dying.
So like she's dying, which
Now-
then like changes his whole attitude, which is like what the speech was about. Like you're gonna have like doubts, like they're they're good guys, they have families, like they used to like play ball in school and stuff, and they have blue eyes, and you're gonna like wonder, and like everybody's gonna hate you, but like you still have to prosecute the case, and so it's all these doubts and stuff that we assume would become recurrent things in basically every episode had this become a series.
Now-
They're just always doubting the cases that they're prosecuting.
Now, part of the problem I have with this side plot, little add-on story for this movie, is it starts off where the kid gets arrested, and it's supposed to be, hey, there's a guy I know. He said that he was needing help. He came to me. He was crying. He was doing all this kind of stuff, and he said I just had to go pick something up, and it was going to have the stuff that he needed to make him feel better. Now, technically, there is a level of plausible deniability just based off of the story alone, where it's like, hey, you were asked to go to this one section, pick up this one thing, and then just bring it back here. You have no idea what it is. It's like the rules of transporting goods.
All three. Never opened the package.
And as long as he never opens the package, then he's not going to actually know what is inside the package. But part of this falls apart because they have proof of him doing things with said drugs. And so regardless of whatever story you're going to tell, like, it shows you dealing with drugs, regardless of picking up the box or not. Like, they have proof of you dealing with this kind of stuff. So now your plausible deniability isn't much of a case, because it's like, hey, we have you actually dealing with drugs, and we have you picking up drugs. So you know what you're doing. And then it's just like, well, we don't really have anything to hold him on. Like, well, then what was this? What is this other evidence then if it's not good enough? So you have to rely on a testimony. Like, that's not really evidence then. It's like fake evidence.
Yeah, they don't have very much evidence.
And so it's like, okay, well, you have the testimony. Well, what is the testimony? It's a guy who gets paid to narc, essentially. And so they make it like they make a deal about this scene as well. So you have this young prosecutor. He's new. He gets sworn in, and now he's having to do like a little mini interrogation and getting some answers, so he knows what he's got to do when they actually do handle the prosecution in court. And the guy, he's telling him all this stuff, and he's pretty chipper about it. He knows that whenever this kid gets convicted, he's going to get paid, because that's how it works for him. He goes out there. He finds these people. He pretty much illuminates the situations of illegal activities and provides the evidence and the testimony required. And when they get hit, he gets paid. And so the problem with this is the prosecutor just for some reason doesn't trust him. He doesn't quite understand. He doesn't like him. And I don't know why. I do not know why he has such an issue.
Because the wife is dying. Like that
we
seems
don't
like
know
the whole thing.
We don't know the wife is dying yet.
No, it's after though. It is after. She says she's dying, and then the scene where
I thought her dying was after the old man. Well, regardless. So the prosecutor has issues with this guy's testimony for some reason. I don't know why. And that's what it feels like they're trying to bring up that maybe this guy is actually lying. But you also have to remember that if the guy is lying and he gets caught, that's counted as perjury. And then that would count as every case that he was involved in would have to be reevaluated. Because if he purged himself once, everything he was involved in, like all those defense attorneys.
Well, it
will
wouldn't
just-
have to, but it would
they would
open
just-
up appeal windows.
Bam, and that's not good for him. So,
No, but it doesn't mean it's not true either. So
like I'm just saying, like, this is the kind of stuff where it's like, here we want to put the seeds of doubt in the viewers' minds, and I'm like,
Yeah.
nah, nah, it ain't working. It ain't working. Like, this guy, he's happy because he knows he's getting paid, so he can go about his life. All right. It's not like there's a sequel to this where we actually find out that this guy, he's the one running drugs instead, and he's doing entrapment or something.
no. Well, and probably even if we had gotten a series, we wouldn't have, like, he would never have come back because we didn't have serial television at this time. Things didn't continue on because you might not have watched, like we said, talking about the A-Team. So you couldn't have him come back. Like, who's this guy? I didn't see this episode.
Yeah.
Previously on The Prosecutors.
And in all fairness, with the wife being dead, if you wanted to be nice and be like, hey,
She's not dead yet.
she's not dead yet, get something like official. Like I want to see the doctor. I want to know exactly how long this is supposed to be. And then the husband is still most likely going to get, sent to prison or something. Yeah, like that whole, like, oh, we're going to put him on probation and get him rehabilitated. Like, listen, this sounds like a cop-out, and I don't think this would actually happen because, you're dealing with, federal drug charges. But just getting something where it's just like, hey, maybe we can get the trial pushed back for a little bit longer, little stuff like that, see how things pan out. But he's still going to get hit.
Yeah.
He's still going to get hit. It's just when and how.
Why did the not dead brother go to see Shatner at his office?
No, that wasn't Shatner. It was another dude.
No, it was Shatner.
No, it wasn't.
It was. That was before you realized it was him, but it was. Because he's the head of the water department. Like when he said, like he goes in, he's like, I want to see him. I'm a citizen. And she's like, do you have an appointment? And then he comes out after they have the argument about the money that they don't have because the stock market is going down because it's the 70s. And then he comes out and like he talks to him for like just a second and he doesn't say anything. He just says like, I wanted to like tell you you're doing a good job and stuff. And then he leaves. Like he doesn't do anything. And like, I guess maybe he just wanted to like meet him. So then when he threatens him later, I don't know. It was weird. It was a thing that didn't really go anywhere.
All right. Well, I could have swore that guy was somebody completely different.
It wasn't.
I'm just saying I could have swore it was. Mostly because he looked thinner. I almost feel like Frank is a bit slow. Because the prosecutors made comment about like Frank not being very good at organized crime, unlike the rest of his family.
Yeah, he's the disappointment of the family.
So I kind of feel like Frank isn't completely there. Maybe he suffered some kind of injury. Who knows? Because he has enough sense about him to have like a sense of pride and to remember things that he's told.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's a completely lost cause, like there's something there. And I almost feel like he went to the prosecutor because Vinny told him to go to the prosecutor.
Yeah. He didn't stay.
Well, I think like that's part of like his maybe a mental issue. But I also feel like part of that was because of the boss prosecutor.
Yeah.
Like he stuck his face into something that he shouldn't have because he didn't read the mood.
Yeah. I think maybe he got scared.
Yeah, well, it's just one of those things where it's just like, I'm talking to so-and-so. I'm not talking to you. Leave. I don't care who you are. I still take a copper pipe and break your kneecap. Your position ain't going to save you from a copper pipe to the kneecap. Know your place. I'm talking to this guy. There's that. And then it almost feels like when he goes and he talks, it's more of a... I have dirt on you and on Giovanni, and I know Giovanni killed my brother, so if you help me get Giovanni, then I'll ignore and get rid of any evidence that would criminalize you. organized crime kind of business. But, he couldn't handle that, and so he shied away. And then he died in an explosion. Yeah, I didn't even realize that was Shatner.
Yeah.
It was I didn't realize it was him
When you
until
see him, especially, he does this kind of like thing with his head.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was him until we were in his house.
Yeah.
And then he had unexpected company.
Well, it's not even his house though. It's his second house that he's maintaining with his corruption money, where he's keeping a girlfriend that isn't his wife, who is much more excited about being his girlfriend than he's excited about her being his girlfriend.
And wants to go to a trip where there is sand and water and not cold weather.
All that cold weather in Los Angeles,
Yeah.
So how do you feel about Stars?
I'm going to say 2, but it's barely a 2.
It's barely a 2. I mean, it's pretty basic, I guess. It's a pretty standard, here's some legal stuff. And, it's very, slow 70s television, which I don't necessarily mind. But, yeah, there's not, it's not a surprise. It's not man, we could have had a whole series of this, and those studio suits just didn't get it. It's nothing like that happening here. If it became a series, fine, it probably would have lasted a season or two, and it would have been another 70s legal show that nobody remembers, and it probably wouldn't have made any difference. But although maybe it could have, maybe they could have done something cool. We don't know. They never got the chance.
Well, this movie didn't make a difference, I'll tell you what.
I mean, it made it onto the show, so, not that that's a
good thing.
Well, I mean...
Two stars. Because I had to keep scrunching up my face and going, what?
Yeah, I mean, it's fine, but sure. I guess, yeah.
I would rather watch the first 2 episodes of season 1 Law and Order.
Oh, well, the first 2 episodes, well, if you talk about the real, the pilot episode is not the first episode. But if you're talking about the 2 first episodes that aired, which are Prescription for Death and Subterranean Homeboy Blues, then absolutely, because those 2 things are really, really good. And if you've never seen either of those things, go and check it. I don't know where you can see the first season of Law and Order in an easy way without buying DVDs, but get thee away and watch them, because they're I mean, not the whole first season, but large swaths of the first season are some of the best Law and Order that they ever made. They do fine things in the succeeding 19 seasons after that, but there's some really good stuff in the first season.
Well, I think to break it down for our viewers, I'm just going to go ahead and spoil it. When the original Law and Order was being aired, our 2 detectives were very similar. And because they were similar, they worked well together. We didn't have unnecessary drama. It was just everything was getting to the point, and it was entertaining. But
that's not the beginning. We don't get Lenny until later.
No, I'm talking about the round guy.
Yeah.
Who ends up getting shot at the end of the season.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, because there wasn't that kind of unnecessary conflict. When we get Lenny, there is a little bit of conflict, but the conflict is between Lenny is a really seasoned detective who's been through everything, compared to the younger guy that we got from season 1, who hasn't been through as much, but still has that kind of fresher perspective. And so we have these 2, their worldly interactions on a situation differences, but it's not unnecessary drama. It's right there. But then they're okay, no, we need 2 younger people to do this. And they bring someone on, and then it's
not younger necessarily, but they wanted conflict.
Yeah,
because
and
they
then
fell
it's
into
just
the we don't know how to write Star Trek kind of thing, where it's we have to have the characters argue in order to have conflict, and that's not true. The conflict is inherent because you have the police and people committing crime. That's the conflict.
Yeah, and it was dumb, and it was unnecessary, and it brought the quality of the overall show down.
Yeah, I mean, really. The first couple of seasons are really great, and they're mostly different characters. Having
I would say
having Mike and Max, who's the round guy, is like really good stuff. And Stone, who leaves in like the 3rd season or something.
Well, I was gonna say, I think it's the first 4 seasons are like the seasons that are definitely you should be able to watch at least half of each one of them and still enjoy like every episode you hit. But then it's like once you start getting around season 5, that's when it starts becoming a little more sketchy and there's fewer things to truly enjoy.
But like peak Law and Order is Mike and Lenny, you know, Chris Noth and Jerry Orbach, and like I really like Stone.
Well, like
I really like once we get Sam Waterston later, and like there is this like brief, like I think it's like 1 season where you have all 3 of them, and like that's like peak Law and Order.
Well, isn't that the same time whenever we had the crossover with Munch?
Well, Munch happened. SVU starts in like season 6 or something of regular Law and Order, and like Munch crosses over. Well, I think maybe Munch does cross over to regular Law and Order first. I can't remember. All of this is really vague, but
because I remember
it's like season 9 or 10 where Criminal Intent starts to exist, but SVU is much earlier.
Well, because like I remember Munch being on an episode and you telling me that he's on SVU, and then he was like on another show, and we hadn't even watched those yet.
I think he probably was. Oh no, that's true because he is. Because well, actually, what happened was Mike, Chris Noth, crosses over to Homicide: Life on the Street first.
Yeah, that one.
And that's the first part, and then the second part is a Law and Order episode. So yeah, that does happen. Yeah. And then like Mike gets kicked off the show, and then like they make the Law and Order movie with him, and like it's the only Law and Order movie they ever made. It didn't go to theaters, but like it exists, and like he's like been exiled to Long Island or somewhere, and
yeah.
So like I miss Mike being on Law and Order. I like Chris Noth. I started watching when it first started airing. I only watched like half the first season. I started watching The Good Wife on CBS when that started in 2009, 8, 9, because Chris Noth is like the husband who's the one that goes to jail, that is what causes the controversy that causes The Good Wife to become The Good Wife. But then he wasn't on it very much, and so then I kind of fell off of it, even though supposedly it's a really good show. So like I kind of followed Chris Noth around, even though he wasn't Mike anymore. And like I know a lot of people know him as like his character from Sex and the City, and like he's been, you know, in lots of things, but like I know him from Law and Order primarily.
Kind of like how I liked Keanu Reeves before John Wick. Because I like Constantine, which we need to do on the show sometime, because for some reason people hate Constantine, and I'm like, no, like, man, that's a hidden gem.
I mean, I feel like most people, maybe not from Constantine, probably not from Constantine, but like I feel like people liked Keanu before John Wick, because like that's fairly recent in the history of Keanu. So
yeah, I know like there's the whole Matrix thing, and you know, like the Bill and Ted have kind of gotten the resurgence. I'm just saying, it's just like take somebody who was only kind of a thing, and then like you really like them, and now that they're a thing, you know.
I mean,
without trying to sound hipstery, you know. I like Keanu Reeves before it was cool. Like, nah, man, it's always cool to like Keanu Reeves. And it's cool to like Mike.
The A-Team
is Jason Bourne.
Now we have 4.
Actually, that might be the closest one to actually being accurate. Minus the A-Team not killing anyone, and that might like
Jason Bourne
with
kills,
their powers combined.
Jason Bourne kills a few people.
A few.
The A-Team is Captain Planet. Like, what is this powers combined business? And that's all we have to say about Incident on a Dark Street. Although probably not all we have to say about the A-Team or Law & Order or MacGyver or Mustaches or
Keanu
Reeves or Jason Bourne.
Things will be said.
Things will be said about
and
other
if you
things.
want to say things, leave it down in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you made it this far.
Write in letters at www.pod.com.
Follow us on Twitter.
Yeah, I guess.
Links are in the description.
They are. We'll see you next time.
Later.
In 1972,
I guess I should say that we're going to have to find a way at some point. We might wait until it comes out on DVD. I don't know. Because it's not, like, important because we weren't, like, right on top of it the first time. But, like, at some point, and you don't have to be here, so you can, like, nope out of this if you want because you weren't there the first time, but you can be here if you want. We have to do Frozen 2 because we did the first one on the show way back in episode 7. I don't even know whether to tell you to go back and listen to that episode because I haven't listened to it in years. I have no idea whether it's a good episode or not. I have listened to older episodes of this show here and there fairly recently, and like I think we have done a decent show even in the old days when I didn't think we were any good, but I don't know about that one in particular.
And if you're listening to us on YouTube, I have not got that episode up, and I probably won't for a while, mostly because we have different hosts, and I would like to try to get a couple of artists to make me a piece so I can kind of do the hosts of those episodes some justice to post that video.
Yeah, because you're not there. It's just
Yeah.
It's me and Kitty and Kate. It's in the real early days. It's actually like what? I guess it's like one episode before. Wait, I said 7. Is that right? I guess it is right.
6?
6. Yeah, because 7 is yours.
Yeah.
Is your 7 is the
'Cause-
Jurassic Park episode.
yeah.
It's your first episode.
Godzilla.
Right. Or Godzilla. Yeah, the Godzilla episode. Right.
But like that's fine.
So
I don't even have that one up.
no, well, I mean, the sound on that one is problematic because you're like over Skype and like that's still back in like the sucking dirt internet period of time. So like that one's a problem. At some point, I guess we probably have to go and just like franchise collection the whole Jurassic Park thing because like we've been at least the like pre-world ones because we've been doing the world ones as they come out.
Yeah.
And we've only ever done the first one originally, and it's like way back, and it wasn't in like a franchise context. So probably we should cover the rest of them because I don't hate the rest of them as much as other people.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, what I want us to do.
I think the 2 could be like 20 minutes shorter, and it would be better.
Well, what I want us to do is I want us to actually go and look up reasons that people hate 2 and 3, write them down, and then after we watch them, we will talk about those points specifically and why they don't bother or do bother us. Because like we can just talk about stuff, but if we're not actually addressing, if we're not Jurassic parking these issues, then like I kind of feel like what's the point?
Well, I mean, it's not what's the point. It's like that. I mean,
because like we're defending something that people seem to hate, and I kind of want to take these points that they've made and then just be like, well, stop being such a doofus.
Well,
No.
we still have to. We haven't done it yet, but we also haven't. We still have a movie to do either between or maybe it'll like coexist with that. I'm not sure that we still have to do the like analyzing or like discussing directly the Siskel and Ebert show reviews of the Roland Emmerich movies to see whether it's justified that he made them characters in Godzilla and killed them off. Like, because I don't think it is. Because, like, I've seen those episodes, and I don't think that it is. But we just need to address it directly because, like, we bring up Roger Ebert in a commonplace way on the show. And it's such a prominent part of that movie, which we've talked about individually now. Like, we need to understand, like, but it's based on that, and what was the movie before? I remember we said it in the episode, but I can't remember now. The movie before, and probably the movie before that, because he feels like terribly persecuted by Siskel and Ebert, and it's just kind of probably not. It's him overblown. Like we were supposed to do like a special thing on the controversy between Jordan Vogt Roberts and CinemaSins, and then we ended up not doing it, and then the time was passed and it wasn't important anymore. But it's kind of something like that where he's like, these critics don't like me. I'm gonna show them what it's like, and
write that down. Actually, write it down and stick it to the wall so we can look at it later.
Yeah.
Because one of the things I was thinking about is we have what's his face who made all the gangster movies, who said that Marvel movies aren't cinema.
Mm-hmm.
No, not comic book movies aren't cinema.
Martin Scorsese, yes.
Yeah,
which we can tie into Roger Ebert also, because it's very similar to Ebert's video games can never be art thing.
Well, I want to talk about. I actually do want to go back to the CinemaSins thing, because there's some addressing on that I think we should have a place on. This whole thing with this dude, and then we can also include that on the episodes of the Siskel and Ebert review, because I'm sure I've made point in the past that I don't like them either.
Yeah.
And I think we can kind of tie this all as a subplot show. It can be its own thing. Well, I mean, reviewers reviewing reviewers.
I mean, I've said before that the subtitle of the show, which you never see because I never use the generic one. Like if you still subscribe to like the ye old feed from like when it was running off a Blogspot page from the really, like, I don't even remember what episode that changed at, probably in the like 60s somewhere, I think, when I changed it over websites. It might not be that late. It might still say it in your podcast app if you've never like refreshed it. But you probably still have the really old, terrible album art from back then too, with like the curly gold texts. But but what it said, and I think it still says it somewhere on the website too, probably, was movie talk, movie reviews, and other movie stuff. And we've, with like a couple of exceptions here or there, mostly never done either of the other two categories. It's just been like straight, in all the episodes, like we don't do clever episode titles. The title of the episode is the title of the movie. And, there's ones here or there where it's like we did the like pre-Power Rangers episode where we looked at the trailer and we talked about our Power Rangers memories. And so like that's an example. And there's, I think, another thing or two here or there, but it's pretty rare. And so we haven't even really, I've mentioned before on the show the John Rogers idea of the promise of the premise. And like I suppose like if the premise of our show is that thing that I wrote way back in 2014, we haven't lived to the promise of the premise because we've only done 1 out of 3 things most of the time. And every now and then, like, we've had ideas to do other things and we just mostly haven't done them. But I think we probably should do them. And I don't want to like, I don't want to just sit around and criticize other people's criticism of other people criticizing their things. As like a thing.
I will totally do that.
But but we could do it. We could do it, one time or a couple of times. But I think we can have kind of a wraparound kind of thing where it has a multiple of topics. Like one of the things, apart from just the time passing by, about the CinemaSins Kong Skull Island thing was that it seemed like that we would just be like sniping at these people that were sniping at each other if we just talked about it as an individual thing. But if it's an element of like criticism as a whole and how things place in that and how like we place in that as critics also, because we are, there was this thing for a long time. Like, it was a super big deal that James Berardinelli from Real Views was like allowed to like vote on like critics things, and that he was listed as a real critic on Rotten Tomatoes, and like it was a big deal because he was an internet critic. And the like New York Film Critics Association and the Los Angeles Film Critics Association were like, you don't write for a newspaper, you're not a real film critic. And like there was this,
newspaper is dead.
Or newspapers or magazines, or real publications that do other things besides the just subset review movies. That it's not just like, we have a movie review website on the internet. And so it was a really big deal. But like most of that's kind of passed by. And even though I think there is sort of something lost from the like because there aren't any real, like there is no Roger Ebert right now. There's Armin White, but Armin White is like just like on crack or something and just like trolling half the time, or I don't know. He's a weird guy and he has weird opinions and he's not the same thing. But there is no like Pauline Kael or Gene Siskel or Richard Roper or Roger Ebert. There's not like names of critics that people know that don't know any, like, you know, if you say Roger Ebert to like most people, they're like, oh yeah, the critic, even though if they don't know the newspaper that he wrote for, or they can't picture his face, like, and there were a few other people like that, and there aren't really anymore. And so like it's not the same thing as it was. I mean, you get much more into that, and the what do we call this thing? Because like we have the cabinet meeting, which then we haven't done anything with because we ran out of time and got married and stuff, and so that'll be next year. But like, what do we call this? Like,
you got married.
This like
don't let me in with that.
Critics review thing. We'll have to come up with a name. If you have a name you want to suggest, write in letters at www.pod.com.
Critics criticizing.
Critics criticizing.
Too large. We'll spell them.
Do we spell it with K's? Like, what are we doing here?
No, we can't have them both be K's, because then someone will be like, I smell white supremacists,
yeah,
and I'm
well,
like, no.
Two out of three
okay.
K's. But we can't have it be CK, because then like that has a whole like Louis thing attached to it potentially. So like, and like KC, you know, it's like KC and the Sunshine Band, like the guy that used to be named KC on the radio. Or are we doing like a CB handle thing? Like, what are we doing? So like, we'll have to come up with a name.
It might even get its own jingle if you're lucky.
Well, I mean, it's like I was gonna say it 100% is, but like it's like 95% is, because like I won't be able to not. Yeah. It's like, because see, that's the thing, you know, some shows, like people like, hey, they send in things. They're like, hey, we'll send, you know, I made this jingle for you, I pulled this clip for you, any of these things, and like nobody's ever done that. That's, well, I mean, Dave's, what was his daughter made us that like Godzilla poster, like that happened, but and that's in the visual business page on the website if you want to go and look at that. But we don't have people sitting like everything you've ever heard on the show I made. It's like we don't have staff, we don't have producers, we're not paying anybody to do these things. Like, I do these things and like pass them by you, and then like you approve or disapprove of things. Like sometimes I don't do that. It's only like major things like the monster.
Well, like there'll be
like
things that you'll play and it's like a lot of times I'm just like,
the first time you're hearing it is on the show. So.
Yeah. Like there's been few times like that I'm just like, oh, that's terrible. Fix that. And it Order 67 is not kill the Jedi, it's make the jingle. All right, we all know it's 66. Do it.
Yeah. I mean, you know, and sometimes like it's just goofball things like
Nicolas Cage is Jason Bourne.
But it's not.
And like I don't like run those by anybody. I just like save them for the show. But you know, we've got 3 of these now.
Keanu Reeves is Jason Bourne. Pierce Brosnan is Jason Bourne.
So like,
I wish I was Jason Bourne.
We've got a bunch of these. Which like the Keanu and the Pierce Brosnan thing, like those are things that we pre-existed, and the Jason Bourne thing pre-existed. Like the Nicolas Cage thing, like we pulled specific because we never had the Nicolas Cage. But no, I don't want to open that in QuickTime. Thank you. So like, yeah, it'll probably get a jingle whenever we come up with a name for it. Just because like we like, you know, we're doing this like this whole thing started based on like 2 things. I wanted to be on the radio, and like that was hard. Like I was like, I really looked into like, what does it cost to get licensed to do like a low power FM or AM station? And like it's not that much, but then it's still like, you know, this transmitter equipment. And then also like I was like yeah, it's that bad was ending, and I was like, this is not okay. I want to be that for somebody else. And so it was like those 2 things came together to make like this thing exist. And so there's this whole like history of radio thing built into it. And so having, you know, the music and the segment bumpers and jingles and stuff like that all comes from radio. It doesn't really come from podcasting, except from like people who do podcasting that came from radio, you know, Adam Curry and people, like, they understand. But it doesn't come from, you know, like the NPR, we're making podcasts out of our radio shows kind of thing, because they don't do the like radio show format. They do a different thing. And so this like radio, which, you know, we're partially like a radio format preservation project, but we're just doing it with like a couple of people and nobody to like produce this or make it. So like I have to make it. And like, they're always, you know, there comes a time every year where I'm like, we don't have a new monster movie intro yet. And it's like the like 5 days from the beginning of March. Like I've got to like find things to put this thing together, and I'm sticking things here or there and trying to find sound effects and trying to make it sound like not the same as what we did the year before. And it gets harder every year. And I'm still like the one that I'm the proudest of that we've ever done. And I won't play it because it's too long. And it doesn't fit as the Back to the Future special one. Like sometimes I still listen to it and like it makes me smile, which like then I feel guilty about for enjoying a thing that I made. But like I really, really like that one. I think
the only thing you should ever feel guilty for
really
enjoying
enjoyable.
that you've made would be like meth.
Well, I mean, you don't get high on your own supply. You know, everybody knows that. But
That's how you get caught.
that's how you get caught, and it's how you don't make any money. And you know, you don't want to not make any money, I guess. So, and now there's 27 minutes of the beginning of this episode that only like 15 of it is talk about Star Wars and other movies, and the rest of it is a production meeting. But there you go.